Hey y'all, Enzo here with Knox Knife Mods, and today on the channel we're taking a look at the Civivi Wehr Knives Nugz. Let's get into it. Alright y'all, the Nugz. Nugz with a Z. Pretty awesome knife here, and if you've been watching the channel for a bit, you may say to yourself, Enzo, I thought you already had a Nugz. Well, I do. I have my old Quiborsha wood Nugz with a much harder detent, and this wood has not held up. And also the detent on this thing is pretty stiff. And also, I really wanted, I don't know why, I really wanted this knife in Damascus. This is only the second Damascus blade I've picked up, and I'm not normally a Damascus guy, but for some reason this knife really spoke to me in this configuration. So yeah, I'm loving this thing right off the bat. Detent is perfect. It's actually really wild, the improvements between these two. This one on the bottom here being about 56, this one being about 80. So man, that extra 30 bucks, if the difference between these two is across the board with all of the more affordable Nugz versus the premium one, wow, it's worth the 30 bucks, I'll say that. My gosh. So anyways, what are we doing here? So this is Takedown Talk. We're going to take this thing apart, have a look at the internals, and you got to hit that flipper the right way, I will say that. And that flipper's going to go. So we're going to do some modding. We're going to take this thing apart. We're going to take both these knives apart, have a look at the internals. And what I'm wanting to do, I definitely want to do a flipper delete, so we'll do that. Because the custom Nugz that Matthew Wehrwine produces in his shop do not typically have a flipper tab. Sometimes they have a front flipper, but they don't usually have a flipper tab. And the detent on this one does not feel like it's set up for that flipper. It feels like it's set up for the thumb hole. And I want to be able to slow roll it, which I can't. That flipper kind of impedes me from doing that. And yeah, I've never been I like some flippers, but it's never been my favorite deployment method. So I'm going to delete that, and then we're also going to take this one apart, and I think we're definitely going to take the backspacer and do a part swap just for a little bit of an accent. And then I'm also going to try, I don't know if this will work, but I want to try to take the clip side scale, dye it black, because sometimes hardwoods can look really cool with dye, and I want to see how this looks just with a black RIT dye. And if it looks good enough, I may do kind of a two-tone sort of deal, or a two-media kind of deal on the scales, and have carbon fiber on the show side and that blackened wood on the clip side. I think that could look really awesome, and that nice wood, the way it's already colored, that accent right here, I think would just look amazing. As always here, we're going for custom, so that is what we're doing. So let's go ahead and get into this thing. Being a Civivi, very confident that all we're going to need here is a T8. It's one of my favorite things about Civivi. I'm not the biggest Civivi fanboy in the world. I do think for what you pay for them, you get a really excellent piece of, what am I trying to say? You get an excellent cutting tool. I absolutely believe that. And this knife has certainly been no exception. I've been so impressed with, I already like the Nugz, the regular Nugz at 56, but this one I've been so blown away with. It's just ridiculous. So this disassembles from the clip side, which is, I've noticed it's a recent thing with Civivi, and I think also with Kaiser they've done that lately. I don't know what the advantage is. I don't really notice a difference, honestly. Sometimes it feels like it's easier on the opposite side, on the show side, to disassemble that way, because it's a little bit easier to work with a liner lock or a frame lock that way. But it's not any much harder this way either, so don't know what the reasoning behind that is, but whatever. I'm sure there's a thought process behind that. Let's go ahead and remove the blade and see if we can kind of just, yeah, lever this out here. There we go. Awesome. So we have here, you can see a very well-maintained detent ball path there. Bearings, of course. There's our pivot. Get that over here. That's something else we're going to do. One of my least favorite things, not one of, my least favorite thing about Civivi is the branded pivots. I don't know why they bother me, because it is a subtle, honestly, it's kind of a subtle way to brand your knife. You know, there's no billboarding on the blade. That's nice. But for some reason, that C pivot just drives me nuts. So I'm going to try to remove that C screw, if you want to call it that, and replace it with the other tooled pivot screw here. So it won't be captive. I can live with that. Let's get these things kind of organized here. Our pivot and our pivot screw there, our stop pin here, bearings, and then our other set of bearings is still on the blade. Here we go. Love taking apart Civivis. It's just so doggone easy. It's a beautiful Damascus blade, by the way. Let's have a closer look at that. Just a lovely, look at that. That's just beautiful. I'm pretty sure Civivi's Damascus is produced using 9CR19 MOV. But if you know more than that, please feel free to correct me. I'm not an expert on Civivi's Damascus. And to continue, let's get these body screws back where they belong here. Come on. There we go. Let's go ahead and take out, because this is Takedown Talk, we take everything out here. So we're going to remove the pocket clip as well. This is our pocket clip. We're going to keep those two pocket clip screws in there if we can. So I'll set that right here. Great. And then here is our liner. Nicely skeletonized, and our carbon fiber scale. You know, just classic, what do you call this, stair step or lightning strike, whatever you call it. That classic pattern of carbon fiber that has been around forever. Still looks great. For some reason, it's growing on me. I used to not like carbon fiber. I don't know why. Lately, I've just been digging it. I don't know. It's just weird. It's some weird, you know, thing. Being a human, I don't know. So let's pop this out. This is coming right out, I think. Or is that screw? Yeah, there we go. I'm holding that receiver in place on the other side of the back spacer. Let's see if we can get that screw out. Yeah, so we'll put this body screw down here. Back spacer on this one appears to also be carbon fiber and not just, you know, like G10. There is only one model in the Nugz lineup that does not have a DLC blade. Well, there's two DLC models. One kind of bead blast, or whatever Civivi calls their bead blast. They have a different name for it. There's one model that has that, and then there's the Damascus one. Let's get these receivers out too. Great. And then there's our back spacer. So if you want a, you know, not a satin blade, but if you want a bead blasted blade, the only one you can get that has that has micarta scales. So there's a whole, if you really want your ideal Nugz, you're going to have to do part swapping, which is exactly what we're doing here. For a minute there, I entertained the idea of taking the liners from that model, which the liners on that model are not coated. They're just, you know, satin, and doing an acid dip. But the more I thought about it, I was like, I feel like the black of the carbon fiber blends nicely with these liners. They are letterboxed liners, so they do sit a little bit proud. And I feel like the black blends nicely, and with that natural wood backspacer, I think it's going to pop better this way. I think there would be too much happening with a gray liner. Anyway, I'm really rambling today. I'm so sorry, guys. This is our exploded view of the Civivi Wehr Knives Nugz. All right, so of course, let's start off with our pivot screw here, our pivot, stop pin. We have two bearings cages here, two body screws, pocket clip with two pocket clip screws, two more body screws, and two receivers for our back spacer, two awesome carbon fiber scales, two heavily skeletonized liners, and a beautiful Damascus blade there. So let's go ahead and, with a little bit of magic here, we're going to take this one apart, and I will have all the parts laid out here on the table in 1, 2, 3. All right, y'all, so two knives here. You can see that the construction is obviously very consistent between both models, but for whatever reason, I don't know, the feeling of the premium model really just stands out to me. But anyways, one thing I wanted to do while we're here is have a closer look at these Quaborsha wood scales. If I can pick them up, I'm probably going to have to just slide them off the wood here. Let me get these screws back where they need to be, because those are pocket clip screws and we don't want to mix them up. Yeah, let's slide this off. There we go. As you can see, I have 2 cracks here. I don't know how well those are going to show up, but you can see them. You can also see how this is sticking out right here. It's a little bit proud. And in both mine and Walsh's opinion, these holes for the body screws are just way too close to the edge here, and obviously it's led to them cracking. What I want to do with this scale, I don't plan on using it, but I want to see if I can repair that. And then I'm going to try to die this scale also and just see how that'll take. But I'm going to do that at a later date. So we're going to see, get some wood glue on there and then, sand it back and see how it takes. But yeah, I was pretty bummed when those cracks showed up. But again, it just reminds me why I prefer, a synthetic material like carbon fiber or G10 or micarta over hardwood. I've just never been a big hardwood guy. However, I do think that this gets the closest to Matthew's customs in its appearance. It does kind of resemble the butterscotchy colors that he uses with those micartas that also have kind of a grain to them like wood does. This gets closest to that. So, I mean, if you can get one that, the wood's not cracked, which this wasn't cracked from the factory, it might get you that vibe. Anyways, let's move along. He's worked with carbon fiber too, so it's not like I'm totally writing that off. A lot of carbon fiber, a lot of titanium. What we need now, we need this scale. We're going to dye that black and see how that turns out. I have no idea, but worst case scenario, we'll have a black piece of hardwood. So that's up first. We'll set that here. We're going to need this backspacer. Those receivers can come out, but I really have to crank on them to push them out, and I don't want to crack this piece because I want to use it. So that is staying as is. We're going to have a nice wood accent on the backspacer there. That's all we need from this blade. So we'll revisit this blade once everything's done. But for right now, we're going to go into my workbench area and we're going to get rid of that little nub of a flipper tab. Should have been called the nubs. You have to be very careful when doing a delete like this because, of course, you need to make sure you know where the stop pin is stopping the blade in the close position, and also, obviously where your lock face is. So our lock face is right here above the flipper tab, and the stop pin interaction point, if you want to call it that, is right above that. You can see that little mark there from the stop pin. So we can safely, honestly, you could kind of do anything you wanted to in this area as long as you stop short of the lock face. You could make a longer kind of choil, although that will be impeded by the handle. So you can't really do a full finger choil. But you could give yourself a little extra room by getting rid of that section. However, I don't think I'm going to do that. I think what I'm going to do is just take the work sharp, turn it around to the platen side, and just try to flatten this section out and give it a nice flat, just satin, finish. It should be pretty easy. It's just a little piece of steel there. Shouldn't be hard at all. I do want to try to keep it clean, but we'll see. Yeah, that should be fine. All right, guys, let's get to it. So the very first thing we need to do is to have a guideline in place. That's what I'm doing right now, is I'm taking a very thin Sharpie and just kind of drawing in a guideline for where I want my flat edge to be, where that flipper tab used to be. So doing that first, then going to work through all the belts. I am going to go ahead and polish this. I want it to have kind of a nice finished look rather than a satin grind on it. So yeah, going to work through all the belts all the way up till it has a nice sort of almost mirrored finish on it. So it'll look really nice. Now up next, we're going to remove the branded screw from the pivot. In order to do that, I just use my wife's old hair straightener, but if you have a soldering iron, that would be even better. And you basically just need to heat the head of that screw up. I bring this straightener up to 450 degrees, and then I let the object I'm heating up rest on it for about a minute just to loosen up the Loctite or whatever thread locker they're using. And then I'm going to place this in the vise and just work it off using a pair of pliers. And then we'll replace that with the other pivot screw from the other wood-handled Nugz. Now, of course, the most important thing that you can do here is to thread lock your new screw. You want to make sure that thing is locked down and it is not coming out. You could use red. Just in case I ever need to work on it, I'm going to use blue since blue is easier to get off. But I've found when I've done this in the past, blue works just fine for this. You don't have to use the really strong stuff if you don't want to. So our last step here is to RIT dye the scale to bring that color down, make it a little less orange, a little bit more kind of a softer brown black color. So I am using black RIT dye here, but I didn't keep the scale in very long because I didn't want the black to overwhelm it. And I'm glad I didn't. I'm really happy with the way the color came out. And I think it melds well with the carbon fiber. All right, y'all. I think that went awesome. Pretty stoked. So here is our dyed scale here, a much darker color than the original Quiborsha wood. Whoa! Sort of natural color, so we can see that. I'm pretty pleased with that. I think that'll go nicely with the carbon fiber scale. In addition here, let's see, we got the Civivi pivot out of that pivot screw, so no more big old C on my pivot. Stoked on that. That went well, and most importantly, honestly, we have a nice polished flat here where our flipper used to be. So really stoked on that. Everything went smooth. Always a plus when that happens. So yeah, cool. Let's get this thing put back together. So what I was thinking on it, thought I'd have another look at this flat real quick. It's not perfect. You can see the polishing wasn't perfect, but I'm pretty pleased with it. It's nice and mirrored. I got it off the grinding belt, the rough belt, and you know, I could have left it with just that rough finish, that belt satin finish. But I don't know. I figured it would actually jump out at you more with that belt finish, that rough finish, as opposed to this beautiful. This beautiful Damascus has a lot of high polish areas. I figured high polishing it would work better, so brought it up to a decent polish there. It mirrors, whatever. So stoked on that. I'm so pleased with how everything turned out. I'm gonna have me a quick glass of Rendezvous from High West. This is my favorite whiskey blend. It's a whiskey rye blend, and it is delicious. And my wife got it for me for Christmas. Very sweet of her to get me that. Oh yes, so good. One other thing I want to shout out here. Number one, love this blade shape. Reverse tanto, if you want to call it that, but nice fat chop here, like a big old chop, and you still have plenty of belly. I quite like this shape a lot. Another thing I really love is Wehr's branding. There's nothing crazy. It's just kind of this funky font. I just really like that. I think it looks really good. So that's dope. Okay, let's get this thing reassembled, guys. I'm just real stoked, really, really pleased with how all this turned out. God, this thing feels so much nicer without that daggum flipper tab hitting me all the time. Oh my gosh. Feels really good. It's funny though, I am debating on the carbon fiber scale here. I almost think I might prefer it, but I'm gonna sit with this for a bit and think on it. Yeah, I think I was feeling flex from the oil, not actual play. Yeah, this feels over tightened. Right, let's check it now. Yeah, it's a little play. Centering's pretty doggone good. Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that was flex. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, guys. Oh boy, as always, it was a trip. What do y'all think? Should we keep the wood scale on there? You can see how well that accent backspacer pops. And it would look equally good with just this carbon fiber scale. I don't know. I gotta think on it. So I'm gonna sit with this for a minute, give it some thought. Oh God, I love this so much more without the flipper tab there. It is insane. It is insane. That's maybe sitting a little bit proud. I don't know. That's pretty tight. So I'm totally cool with that. Doesn't bother me. But you know, like I said, I'm just a dude who does this stuff in his garage. You know, I'm not running out of a machine shop, so my tolerances and my stuff's not always going to be perfect. But I'm happy. I am happy. I'm really digging this thing. Yeah, man, it looks awesome. And you know, part of this is cool because it's kind of a triple tone thing. That's kind of cool. It's, you know, its own thing. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. So from here, we are going to cut to the closing thoughts on the Civivi Wehr Knives Nugz. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see y'all at the closing thoughts. A couple more things before we get to the closing thoughts, however. When I did the cardboard cut test for this knife, I found that the high contrast finish on the blade did not hold up well to scratches. I mean, you can just see the scratches immediately, and they're very ugly on that beautiful blade. So I decided to do an acid dip on the blade, which I'm really happy with. I love the way the finish came out. Kind of brings those highlights down, makes the appearance a little bit more muted, a little bit more subtle. So happy with that. And then I also decided to put an acid rub finish on the pocket clip. So all I did there was remove the coating from the top of the clip. I didn't worry about the sides, so the sides are still black. But remove the coating from the top, do an acid dip, and then do a rub on just a Scotch-Brite pad, and came away with an acid rub finish. I think that looks really good as well. So now on to the closing thoughts. All right, y'all, closing thoughts on the Civivi Wehr Nugz. Really stoked on how this mod came out. I've decided to call it the Erd Steel mod. As it was coming together, kind of realized that it's kind of got this, and y'all can make fun of me if you want. I know some of these influences sometimes seem like they're pulled out of thin air, but for me it really reminded me of kind of Elden Ring kind of vibe a little bit. There's a dagger in that game called the Erd Steel dagger, and it's got this very, I don't know, this presence to it that, I guess it's the color of this, the way the knife is turned out. You know, you've got the black carbon fiber show scale, and then you've got the dark brown clip scale, and that game has this color scheme that's very muted and very somber, and I feel like this knife kind of carries that along with it. So yeah, the Erd Steel mod, I hope you guys dig it. First off, though, I want to take a closer look at these last two mods that I did for it. The acid wash on the Damascus blade here, which I really like a lot. At first, I was afraid to remove that beautiful high contrast polish, but I like this kind of dark gray much more. Really pleased with that. Here's the other side as well. And also, we will take a closer look at the pocket clip here with that acid rub. As you can see, I've put a couple scratches on it, but I'm pleased with how it hides wear overall. I can deal with, a random snail trail here and there. Overall, though, I really like the way that acid rub looks. Really glad I did that. As you can see, like I said, the sides are still black, and that's fine, and it goes with the look. Also, happy I stuck with the black liners. I think getting yet another copy of this knife just to have satin liners would have been insane. So let's dive into the functions and features of this knife. Of course, this blade is Damascus. Again, I think it's 9CR19 based Damascus. I do not know that for a fact. I really like the pattern. I think the pattern is really beautiful. And for $90, I think it's a beautiful blade. It came very sharp out of the box from Civivi, and in doing my cardboard test, that's the factory edge that you see working there, and it's doing an excellent job. Just be aware, as I said earlier, that this finish that comes stock on this knife does not hide wear very well at all. So if you don't like scratches on your knife, man, I don't know what to tell you. This may not be a good option as an everyday worker. However, if the scratches don't bother you, then take it to town. This thing will do all kinds of work. It's an excellent blade shape for that too. It's also an excellent blade shape for work in the kitchen because you've got this nice long belly, this nice low tip, a very piercy tip still though, so you can get into things pretty easily. But yeah, it wants to slice. Now, I will say it's nice that the handle arcs away from the blade, so it does give you some clearance on a cutting board. It would be even better if you didn't have this sort of drop down platform on the handle. But I personally like that aspect of it. When I'm holding the knife, my finger does not want to creep up at all. It prevents that from happening. Had I not removed the flipper tab, then the flipper actually acts as a guard as well, so even further removes your finger from the blade. However, I found that flipper tab was just, I don't know, it just annoyed me. Everything about it kind of annoyed me, and I think this knife is a much better, I guess, performer, for lack of a better way of putting it, after removing that flipper tab. So let's talk about deployment real quick. Now that the flipper tab is gone, our only method of deployment is the thumb hole. You can very easily middle finger flick this. I think that is between the thumb and the middle finger, it feels better on the middle finger. The thumb is really nice too still, but because of the detent, I still cannot easily slow roll it. I'll try it, and it's also the handle shape contributes to that as well. I'll try to do this here real quick, but yeah, see, it wants to pop out. The detent wants it to pop out. So slow rolling, it's not the easiest thing in the world. And it's almost kind of dangerous. Like you might cut yourself by accident trying to slow roll it. So I tend to prefer a thumb flick or the middle finger. And again, middle finger is, well, that was a bad example, but the middle finger typically feels really good on this. We have a flat grind here. I guess technically it's a saber grind because you have a flat right here, but it's a flat grind. There's a nice swedge right here. I really love the design of this blade. I think it's super attractive. I know I already talked about it in the disassembly, but yeah, it just looks really excellent. We'll take a quick look at the flipper delete here. Now that I've acid washed this, you can see the layers, which is really cool. So I'm really glad I brought that up to a high polish because this shows off really well. Hopefully you guys can see that. The sunlight's kind of playing with me here. But that looks awesome. While we're at this position, let's take a look at the lockup there. And as you can see, we are sitting at a really nice spot there. I'd say it's the lock itself the bar is fully engaged, but it's only taking up maybe 40% of the blades hang there. So it's a really good spot to be at, in my opinion. I don't like an early lockup and I don't like a late lockup, so that's pretty nice right there. One thing while we're here that I do not like, and I've seen Civivi do this before, I don't like this jimping on the lock bar. I do not like the way that looks, and I don't like the way it feels. I would have preferred, if possible, just a smooth lock bar. So that's one thing that's kind of I guess not a bummer, but I just don't really care for it. It feels, something about it to me just feels kind of cheapy. I understand why it's there. You know, they want to make sure you get good traction on that lock bar, and because of the handle shape, it's probably necessary, because, you know, you've got this thin handle that can pretty easily fall out of your hand if you're not paying attention. So having extra traction on the lock bar is nice, but to me, that look is not attractive. I think there's other ways that could have been handled, but whatever. That's one small moan amongst otherwise a lot of praise. Quick look at the centering here. Not perfect, but not bad. It's a little bit off to the left. However, I'm usually not a big centering guy. The only time I care about centering is if a blade has been designed to highlight the centering, and if that's the case, then I want the centering to be perfect. This one hasn't. This is just, you know, your typical knife, typical pocket knife in terms of the design around the centering. So I don't care that it's off a little bit. Let's talk about the handle now. Of course, this came from the factory with stock CF scales, and as you've seen in the video, we've added this replacement scale, which I think looks really fantastic. For a bit there, I thought maybe I should go back to the CF scale on this side, but the more I've carried this, the more I love this triple tone kind of look. There's another look at that kind of orangey, reddish backspacer there. But yeah, I'm really loving the look. So since this has, you know, multiple medias going on the handle, we'll really talk more about the shape. As I mentioned, it does lend itself well to kind of working in the kitchen a bit because of the way the handle moves away from the blade, but that handle really thins out toward the back. So this can be, at times, it can feel forward heavy and blade heavy. And as a result of that, it doesn't want to sit in the hand. Well, it sits in the hand just fine, but it wants to fall out of your hand a little bit more than a pocket knife that has a more balanced blade to handle ratio. So that's something to think about. Design-wise, I think the whole thing looks really good. I think it's a sharp design, but yeah, it does want to kind of leave the hand a little bit easier than other designs I've carried. And it's also a fairly neutral handle to hold because you have this one sort of choil area right here, and this flat, and then this curved back. So for me, I can easily get a 4-finger grip on it. For somebody with larger hands, your pinky may be kind of trailing off. Your little finger might be trailing off back here at the back a little bit. But for me, this feels great in a 4-finger grip. Feels good in the hammer grip. Feels really good in the saber grip. I really like this jimping up here on the blade. It's very effective, and yeah, just really feels good. Big fan of that jimping up there. So it feels good in a saber grip, feels good in a hammer grip. Also feels good in reverse grip if you ever would have a need to carry that way. I never have, but you know, you never know. So I think the last thing we'll touch on here is the pocket clip. I believe that's the only thing that we haven't brought up. However, if there's anything I missed, always feel free to add in the comments and I can reply to you about that. So the pocket clip here is a milled stainless steel clip. I really dig this, and you know, I'm all for, if that's one area of a pocket knife that a company maybe wants to go a little bit cheaper on and not do something like titanium, do stainless steel instead. Do a cool stainless steel milled clip. I love this clip. It is absolutely a Wehr Knives clip. If you look at his customs, this looks just the same. It looks very similar to the clips that he used on his Rayot runs, on his Best Tech runs. So yeah, I love this clip. Now, it's obviously not a fold-over deep carry, but it still carries pretty nicely. So what you're going to be seeing out of the pocket is basically this. Retention in pocket is really good. It doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. It has a nice snap when you remove it from the pocket, so that's great. And I prefer a shallower carry. I like to be able to get to my knife when I need it. So I'm a big fan of this pocket clip. I think it is excellent. All right, guys, well, I believe that covers everything that we wanted to go over with the Civivi Wehr Knives Nugz. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of the Erd Steel mod, and I hope you guys dug the Elden Ring music. I know it can be kind of sparse and kind of depressing, but you know, whatever inspires the mod, I usually try to have the music fold in with that. So hopefully you guys were cool with that. If you've played Elden Ring and like it, let me know what you think about it. But But anyway, guys, this was a fun one. Really pleased with how it turned out, and really stoked to kind of do a bit of a custom job on another Wehr design. Yeah, guys. So I will see y'all in the next one. That'll probably be another video from Walsh coming up soon. But until then, we will see you guys later. Peace.